Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money. I'm your host, Austin Black, and for the next few weeks, we're going to be doing something a little bit different around here. It is January 2025, and we are preparing to launch Season 3 of the Heart of Money in the middle of March. So between now and then, we're going to take a step back into time and re-listen to the top episodes from Season number 2. We're going to take the top 5 episodes that we released over the last year that you guys love to listen to, that you guys have downloaded over and over again. We're going to give you a chance to listen to them one more time as we recap all the conversations from Season 2 and get ready for Season 3. And while we're doing that, I want you to be sure and be watching for the upcoming summit that we're going to be hosting and coinciding with the launch of Season 3 there in March. We have more information coming about that here the next few months. Really exciting opportunity for you guys. So in the meantime, the top 5 episodes from Season number 2, we're going to start with episode 67, The Trick to Getting Your Husband to Talk About Money. This is part 1 of a 2-part series that we aired back last year. And part 2 is actually going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. So spoiler alert, if you want to listen to both of them back to back and get 2 of the top 5 right there next to each other to carry on the conversation, you're more than welcome to. But number 5 episode from Season 2 was episode 67, The Trick to Getting Your Husband to Talk About Money. I'm excited for you guys to hear this episode once again. Hopefully you can continue to gain some insight and pull some nuggets out of this as we continue the conversation. So let's jump right in to our replays from Season number 2. Well, the dynamic duos are back. Bob and I are here, and so are our wives. Glad to have you all again this evening to carry on in the new year. And it's kind of fun because Bob and I usually, whenever we have our episodes together, we kind of know what the conversation is going to go like, but there's different enough opinions that it may take a tangent or a turn, and we never know what's going to fully happen. But then we bring you two on, and we really never know what's going to happen, where we're going to end up. It's usually in a good way, but it's always that fun. How's this going to go when you have 4 different people talking? I think tonight's going to be no different. So I'm excited to have this conversation. Bob, Kate, how are you guys this evening?
Doing great. How are you guys?
We're here. We're living the dream. Right. We're still talking and hugging and loving, and yeah, life's great in 2023.
Might be why we both are sniffling.
Hey, it's cold in the wintertime. What can I say?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bob, this has been a topic that you and I have talking about for a long time. And I think that goes to show that we don't like talking about this because we haven't done it yet.
And now we're doing it, and like Laura said, she's going to set the record straight. So, and she's not going to be the only one that sets the record straight. So,
well, I'm smart enough to know not to argue with her on air.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying this might be your last podcast? Is that what you're saying?
Or the last one he invites me to.
I've been on that line for a long time.
Bob lives on that line. That's a street address. If I didn't have him, I couldn't do it though. So I'll keep him on board. Doesn't that make you feel good?
It makes me feel good. I'm just waiting for the letdown.
He just loves you for your internet connection.
That's right.
Yeah, we had to put Bob as the host on this show because my internet's not good enough. So if I lose him, I may not be able to host this with a clear video anymore. That's all it amounts to.
At least you know you're good for something, Bob.
Yeah, especially after our guest interviews where the guest starts talking and the connection drops. First, we just had the problems for what,
Fun
20, 30 minutes of each show. And then we got to the guests and we had the same problem. So it's good we're all in 2 rooms instead of 3.
Yes, definitely. Well, so yeah, tonight we're going to talk about how. Or I guess let me rephrase this a little bit. I know we got some guys on this podcast that listen. There's not many of you out there, but there's a few. So this is going to probably be something that you want to lean into and listen to. But the majority of our audience is still you lovely ladies out there. And this is something that I really want to talk about for your behalf. Because we're going to talk about how to get your husband to talk about money. And you're probably going, oh boy, this is going to be a fun conversation because we don't like talking about money, which is something that I've heard repeatedly over and over the past several months from people, from clients and potential clients and just people I talk to, is my husband doesn't like to talk about this. This is a sensitive subject. He has his own opinion. He has his own thought process. We don't fully agree, but I don't know how to bridge that gap with him and communicate my emotions, my concerns, my feelings, and get on the same page with him. So it's an in-depth topic. And I know we're not going to be able to cover all the different elements of it. And Bob, that's why you and I coach, because it is so in-depth that we can take clients through a very specific process on getting to this point. But tonight, I thought it'd be great to have everyone come back on here and we share our perspectives, because Bob and I can talk about, and we're going to talk about, how guys think, talk, respond, relate to money, to emotions, to conversations. But that's on our end. And to understand fully how to have this conversation with your husband, I think we have to have the ladies' perspective and input on how we have real life conversations with each other. So that's kind of where I want to take this tonight, and kind of see what insights we can bring from the table. So, Bob, I guess to start out, because I know one of the things that a lot of women that I've talked to, mostly on the podcast I've been a part of, has kind of been a thematic question, you might say, is how do we get men to have this conversation? And I always kind of have a routine answer I give because of what I have seen and witnessed, and I'll go into that here in a little bit. But from your perspective, just as a man, as a husband, whenever you go into a personal, emotional situation and you got to talk about it, what are some of the things that run through your mind in what you're willing to talk about, what you're not willing to talk about, and why that is? Can you kind of kick this off for us with that thought process?
Well, I'm thinking a lot about it, and it's run through my mind many times over. And I've had it go through my mind so many times that I thought I've already had the conversation. And come to find out, my wife disagrees with that line of thought because it's never actually come out of my mouth and it just keeps running through my head. So I think I would kind of lean on her because she might put it, she would be more blunt in how to get me to talk about it, because I'm thinking about it often. I just don't verbalize it.
Yes, that is something that we have difficulties around because, he's here all day and is working and doing stuff around the house, when he gets up to have his break from his desk. And so he's thinking about everything and doing things as we need it. And then I come home and I'm like, okay, so, I'm ready to talk and everything. And he's already thought of all the stuff and taken care of things and bought whatever we needed. And I have no idea most of the time. Like, I don't know what we're getting anybody for Christmas.
Austin's not getting anything.
Yeah. Or what I just
He
get
didn't
looped
get
in.
anything. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. I just get looped in on things, after it happens. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of difficult when you have somebody that's just used to going and doing, and you want to be looped in on the process too. So trying to have that conversation early is,
and I
is
think
what's
sometimes
best for us. Go ahead, Laura.
I was saying that same kind of thought process, though, of whether it's he's just gone ahead and done it or he's thought about it and then he is ready to have that conversation with you. You have to be really careful how you respond, because you're not as far along in the process and the thinking as him. So whenever you start asking questions, the way you phrase those questions can determine how the rest of that conversation is going to go. He can either feel like he is being supported and you're just trying to get to the same place as him, or like he's being questioned of, why would you even think like that? Why didn't you consider this?
That's usually,
and that was one of the things
that's usually
early in our marriage.
Whenever I ask questions.
Yeah. And that's really kind of where the basis for what I call my routine answer when I've been on these podcasts and whenever I've shared this is from a male perspective, and Bob, chime in anytime you want to on this. But I've always said that there's three emotions that guys feel when it comes to talking about anything personal or financial or emotional, and that's that they want to maintain control, power, and authority, and all in a positive manner. I mean, it's not like they want to be, the ultimate, whatever I say goes type deal, but they want to know that there is control, power, and authority in what they are saying and how they are handling the situation and where the conversation is going. Because as soon as a guy gets into a vulnerable spot, he clams up and he gets really nervous and really uncertain. And there is a lot of questions going through his mind of, why am I not trusted? Why am I not respected? Why am I being questioned on this? I'm losing my control, power, and authority in this moment. And I know that's a lot of times whenever I just stop talking, is because if I say something, it's not going to be interpreted the right way. It's not going to be understood the right way. And I've heard a lot of other conversations where, whenever the wife starts inquiring, the husband feels like he's being, I don't want to say interviewed, but there's questioning happening there. Yeah, kind of and that's an extreme phrase, but yes, being it's being examined of why do you think this, which gets translated to questioning and uncertainty, and that's at the high level the core of what I have experienced and seen for myself and others in the essence of where a guy thinks. Bob, chime in here with your thoughts. Do you agree with that? Do you have different comments on just our mental philosophy in those serious moments?
Well, I'm thinking back to the conversation we had with Dana Che on how guys interact with money, and that the way she was a saver and her husband was a spender, and he wasn't a bad guy. And it took somebody else pointing it out that he was trying to do the right thing. It was just in a way that was different from the way she would go about it. And that to me was very insightful, because it kind of opened me up to the way Kate and I interact, that I go and do something and it's not to just go and do it and be spiteful, vengeful, or because I have the ability to do it, but it's usually because it's something that I feel needs to be done or needs to be taken care of. And it's a small thing that is quickly on to the next thing. And Kate might not feel that way in some cases, but I mean, we're not talking about large purchases. So I think that's just one of the things, is just in how we plan spending and also in how our own budgets go, since we have the 2-line budgets and come together to see how we are splitting that up. Mind you that since we came from different backgrounds where we had previous spouses that did their own freewheeling of spending, so we're a little bit more guarded and still learning how to do that with each other in the best way that works for us.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I have to remember is Bob's taking care of it, so it's one less thing for me to have to worry about. Except sometimes I want to be in on the planning part of it, just a little example. And it's not a big thing, but when we got the camper, we didn't have plates and stuff. It came with a whole bunch of stuff, but they just used paper plates and that kind of thing. So Bob went out and found good plates that were not breakable at, whatever he found them, and ordered them, and here they were. Well, plates and kitchen stuff is kind of something I wanted to pick out for the camper. So while he was doing me a favor and taking care of it, it was something that I felt, I wanted to be in on the conversation with. So it's just understanding that we come at it from two different viewpoints, and then me just having to sometimes say, yes, thank you, dear. I'm glad you took care of that for me. It's one less thing.
Yeah, I screwed up on that one, and I've done that on occasion. And then she reminds me, and I go, oh, sorry.
But she didn't make you take the script there. She kind of gave you the free ride there. So I'm proud of you for admitting to your own mistake.
Oh, I've already admitted that one. And it was really one of those that I found a deal, and they were cheap and they were what we needed. And she was going to go to an auction and find something. And I just went online and said, oh, this works. And it was a done deal. And
he did let me get the pots and pans for the camper. So
there you go. I think back to early on whenever we got married. And I mean, it's like probably in the first 3 months of being married, we had a budget meeting, and towards the end there, it went downhill fast because we were both agreeing upon the numbers, but her process of understanding that seemed like it was questioning my formula. And I still remember how I felt like she wasn't trusting me in that regard because she was just trying to find out where I got that. She wasn't, disagreeing with me. It was just trying to fully understand that formula. But because she just didn't understand it the way that I had laid it out, I kept feeling like there was this questioning and uncertainty and lack of trust there. And I think that happens a lot of times when there is the just, I don't want to say opposing perspectives, but when you don't know how to come together and find that common language, for lack of a better phrase.
So you never tried to change your approach of how you were going to explain it to me. It was just, here it is. Why don't you get this?
Yeah. And, obviously, over the time, over years, and over different budget meetings, we've learned how to modify and adapt and change how we talk about that. But, I go back to, as a guy, in that moment, I know I'm right. There's no question that I'm right. I did the math. I did the numbers. I know it's right. And when that gets questioned, even if it's to understand it, I feel like, why are you questioning what I know is right? There's just that instinctive defense that goes up. And I think that is probably one of the hardest things for husbands and wives to get past is, Bob, if our wives start asking us questions about something that we've already thought about and talked about, we have to really, it's easy to feel like there's just that inquisition of what we have decided and kind of looked at. And I'll let you girls kind of chime in here on, how what you've learned, what you do, what you have changed in those type of conversations. Because I think that's really where a big part of this conversation hinges on, is in those times where your husband doesn't want to talk about it, but you do and you need to. How do you bridge that spot? How do you get them to maybe not so become vulnerable, but just become honest and realize that I am not judging you. I'm not criticizing you. I'm trying to understand you, and I need you to open up and explain to me the emotion behind your position. So the floor is yours, girls, to kind of walk us through your perspective and approach on how you had those type of conversations with your husbands.
Sometimes it's about just looking for the right window of opportunity to have the conversation. Depending on how the day has been or just what's going on, life in general, there are times that are not good to bring up sensitive subjects. And there are other windows of time that you kind of get a sense that he is ready to have a conversation. Or if I try to approach it, there's maybe a little bit more willingness there than other times. So it's a little bit of perception, I guess. I know we can't always read your mind, but just looking for what kind of gauging, what's the mood like? If it's been a really bad day, it's probably not a good time to have that conversation.
I find the same thing. And starting out with, I'm trying to understand, or I don't fully get where we're coming from with this. It is putting it on me so that he knows that I'm not questioning what he's doing or why he did it, but that I'm trying to broaden my understanding of it. I asked, and I'm bad about asking questions, just blunt, hey, what is this, or what, I'm very bad about that. So
and I've done that sometimes too, Kate. And I think that part of it is because I remember back to in our premarital counseling and things where we were talking about communication. It's like, you can't just hint around with guys. They don't take hints. So you have to just come out and be straightforward. But then when you do that about something sensitive, they get mad at you. So I'm still confused on that.
Me too.
Well,
I know how we feel about trying to read your mind sometimes.
I'm going to say that there have been, I'm not even going to go down the question and bluntness argument, because that's been fun a couple of times. Not really. Kind of play that one off. What do you want to do that for? Why are you going to do that? Who cares? It's something minute. Anyway, to your 3 months in conversation about money, this time last year we had a conversation, thinking if it was just really a conversation, but I want to get Kate's replay of it, because I had already pretty much settled where money was going to be reallocated to, and she came to me and said, we need to change the budget. And I had already thought it through. I had already made the changes, and I was ticked. And I was not ticked at her. I was ticked that I'd spent all the time and had figured out what needed to go where and had it all figured out. And after spending, not going to lie, probably hours on it, trying to figure out how to tweak it the way it needed to be done, I had to go back and do it again. And I think she was upset and thought I was mad at her, which was not the case whatsoever. And that was a weeks-long conversation, or a weeks-long point of contention, simply because I had not taken into account other things that had changed. And it was like, and that was again one of those, sorry, my bad deals, that I should have known better. Again, the whole point that we're on the show is don't do what I did. And here's another example. So I just want to get Kate's take on how her perspective of that incident went.
Well, Laura, that was you can't hint around, and you kind of have to try to find the right time to talk about it. And I had been like trying to broach the subject.
Right over my head. I don't know how many times.
Yeah. And
it slid on across.
It up kind of.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I won't say there's not much there to slow it down, but
she did.
There were several attempts at the conversation before I was finally just flat out, okay, listen, I can't do this anymore. I'm like draining down my emergency fund, paying for more than I can. And I was frustrated because I'd been trying to talk to him about it. And he was frustrated because he had just gone through and spent hours redoing everything without saying anything to me. Like, you know, it probably all could have been solved if I had come out and said it in the first place instead of trying to approach it, you know, a couple different times. Mm-hmm. And him saying, hey, I'm going to go through the budget and move stuff around. Do we need to talk about anything first? But so that's kind of on both of us. But again, like, you know, I was trying to gently ask questions and ease into it, and that wasn't working. So there I was, blunt, and finally smacked him upside the head with it, and then he was upset.
But not with her, with the time that I'd already put into it.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of go back to where we started with this, you were talking about, you know, being blunt and knowing how to ask the question. Something that I have advised other couples on, and kind of experienced this in some of my own relationships, is there's a time and place to just outwardly ask the direct question. But then there's also a time and place where you have to adjust the way that you ask that question. So, like in your case, you know, whenever you want to ask, you know, why did you do that? Well, whenever I hear why did you do that, the very first thing that I hear sometimes is you were wrong. That's what comes in my head is I made a bad decision, I was wrong in that, and now I'm being, you know, critiqued for that. And all you're wanting to do is understand why I did that. I mean, it is a literal question. So what I have advised to people to do is, you know, if you are the woman or you're the wife in this situation, instead of asking, why did you do that? You ask, what made you decide to take this approach? Or what made you have that decision?
How did you come to this?
How did you come to that? Acknowledging the fact that you're not arguing with that decision, but you want to understand where they came from. Because and granted, sometimes the guy is not in the right spot to hear that, why did you do that? Because there's times where I can just flat out answer why I did it. There's times where I feel like this being questioned. So that's not entirely something that the wife can perceive, and I understand that. But in that moment when the husband does get from that defensive standpoint, in my experience, that's why, is because there is this inner voice going, I'm being critiqued for why I went this route, and she's questioning why I did this. So, you know, in a reaction like that, I like to flip it around to be coming from a acknowledging but still seeking to understand what led to that decision, so that you can be on the same page. And sometimes from the bluntness standpoint, you have to say, now I'm not arguing with you, but I don't understand why you made that decision. So can you explain to me what led to you having that? That's, again, a blunt, direct, you accomplish the same thing, but I now know she's not questioning me. She wants me to give reason that validates my decision.
Well, and I think what the men have to keep in mind sometimes is you may have spent hours or days thinking about this, working through it, processing it, and you've only spent 5 minutes cluing us in. So we haven't had the time to think and process that you have had to immediately just jump on board and be supportive necessarily. We've got to be taken on that same path that you were on. So some of it is a bit of the men working on how they communicate that whole thought process to us.
Yeah, I hear that question, Austin, and I say, I'm taken back to junior high, and I'm like, I don't want to show my work on my math answer. Because that's what it goes back to is I've spent all this time. I am not going to proof my answer, and I'm not going to show you how I got to this because it will take me 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. He is the king of one-word answers, and that's
Well, and in those instances, like you were talking about, Kate, earlier, whenever Bob just kind of does things, there's been on more than one occasion when I have been working through kind of out loud a problem, whether it be money related or just a decision, whatever, and Laura will try to sometimes, give her feedback or ask me questions or just try to help me, rationalize through this. And I'll just say, I've got it taken care of. Don't worry, under control. And if I say it in the right tone, she understands that I don't need any insight on it. I have complete control over it, and I'm going to make a good decision. I mean, it's not like I'm seeking input. I'm just sharing the parameters of that decision. Sometimes she doesn't agree with that and wants to be a part of that, in which case I've learned I need to make her be a part of that. But there's other times I'm like, that complicates it if I try to take your input and your feedback, because I literally know where this conversation is going, know where this decision is going, know how to handle it, what to do. Do not worry about it. I've got it. And again, it's kind of that, what's the right situation? What's the right model?
It's just like Kate wanted to be able to pick out her plates, though.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering how many times, Austin, you got hit
that,
upside the head for saying something like that. I've got it taken care of. Don't you worry.
My wife loves me enough to not hit me. I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure she has wanted to on more than one occasion.
That's when you go slam a door instead.
Man, you were saying something a minute ago, Bob, that I was gonna comment on. I forget what it was now. What were you saying a few minutes ago before I started up again?
About the proofing a math problem or solving.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Working back through my work.
Yeah. So there, I guess I'll merge two thoughts together here. There are times when it does take more time and effort than necessary to explain that. But I think there's also times when guys just don't want to. Like, that's probably kind of what you're talking about is I don't need to. I don't want to. Stop asking me.
I've exhausted it myself. I don't want to go through it again.
Yeah.
Let's see. You said more time than you feel is necessary, not necessarily how your wife feels.
That's exactly right.
But, if I flip that over and I think to, let's say there's a guy out there who just frankly doesn't like talking about it. Doesn't mean that he has it under control. He just doesn't like talking about it. Money is a sensitive subject to him. It's a personal subject to him. And, from his perspective, he has it under control. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And this is why his wife is asking for reasons, asking for some proof, asking for some answers and understanding to get them on the same page. And this is where I see a lot of the conversations hitting a very quick halt, because the guy doesn't want to show the work. and the woman wants to see how the problem was solved. It's a you got to show evidence to get an A on this test type scenario. I have not been in that situation myself, so I can't speak personally. Maybe you can, Bob, I don't know. But from an outside perspective, I think that at that point, it really does fall upon the woman to start peeling back those layers and helping them understand, I know that you don't like talking about this, but I have to talk about this. So how can I show you my need and desire to know this without you feel like I'm questioning you? But we have to talk about this, because that's the sensitive conversation the guys don't want to have. So again, I'll open it back up to everyone here. In those moments, and maybe you guys even haven't experienced that, but what would be some suggestions you would have on peeling back those pieces of that mental process for the guy to help him understand, even if this is going to be a hard conversation for you, we got to have this conversation. And then I'll have my answers after you guys share.
Okay. You'll have the final thoughts because you already know the answer, right? I think it goes back to Laura's comment about knowing the time to approach the subject, or seeing when a more opportune time is, if it's a good day to do it, if other things are going on. I think Kate gets a pretty good idea that if I'm in front of a computer and I've been in front of Excel spreadsheets all day, and then I turn to my right and I work on my own personal Excel spreadsheets, that it's probably not the best time to approach the subject. Or, if I'm doing 2 or 3 different things and I've got a list of projects that I'm working on that I'm trying to knock out, probably not the best time to approach it. I'm also going to say there's probably not ever a really good time for her to approach it. So that's where I would lean on her to explain how she sneaks that in.
Yeah, that's it just kind of goes back to Laura's comments about feeling things out. And I try to start the conversation several times. And a lot of time I feel like I have better success in conveying my needs is when I'm saying, I'm feeling unsure of what's going on, or, I need this from you to feel, I don't know how I even say it. I need to feel the security of this, and that's something that comes from, our previous issues too, is that I was in charge of everything before and trying to figure out how to cover all the stuff that was being spent, sometimes unbeknownst to me. So I still have a need to really control a lot of stuff that I don't have to worry about as much with Bob, but I still need to feel that. I still need to have the knowledge so that I can feel secure in where we are and what's going on and all the moving pieces. So
how would you say that you bridge that? What are some of the ways that you actually verbalize to him that need and that desire, so he understands this needs to be addressed, and I need you to join this conversation with me? Can you give us some practical examples?
Yeah. I start out with the I need and I'm feeling first before I start in on the what information I'm needing from him. I'm feeling like I'm not a full, I'm feeling like I don't have the full knowledge of what's going on, and I need you to show me, just where stuff is. He's opened savings accounts for the kids and whatnot, and I had no idea where half of them were most of the time. I think my name's on all of them, but, I was like, I'm feeling confused about this. I need you to help me, show me what's going on so that I am not confused, and so I feel secure in, being able to move forward. So
then
talking about
what is
how I feel and
what's kind of your second level? Because I know, at least with me, and I'm sure probably other guys are like this. It might take 2 or 3 rounds of questions from different angles to actually get us to get the hint of, okay, this is what we need to talk about. This is why we need to talk about it, and I am now willing to talk about it. Are you able to get them to start talking from the very beginning, or are there different levels you have to kind of walk through with your questions to really get that emotional conversation started?
There's usually a couple of layers of that. Sometimes I have to repeat myself a couple times of me not feeling engaged, or, I know you're taking care of this, but I don't know what's going on.
Days apart.
Yeah, days apart, kind of laying the groundwork. And then I figure out, one day when he's got all of his projects done, and I'm like, honey, I know we've been talking about this. Do you have time to show me that now? So that kind of talking about it more than once and finding a good time to, do you have time to show me what you've done here? Or, how can I be helpful in this sometimes is another one. I know I'm not usually helpful, but I do try.
So Bob, when it takes the 2-3 different times, the reason that it does is Kate's not successful the first 1 or 2 times. Is it bad timing? Is it you just don't want to, you're avoiding it, and then she eventually wears you down? What's the reason that you eventually will participate in the conversation?
The standard lines of excuse would either be that I'm tired, I've already thought it through so much that I've just exhausted at that point, or that I don't even hear, that I'm just not listening. That it just has to connect at some point. So, I mean, she can say it multiple times, and she can also tell me, well, we've talked about this a couple times, and it just doesn't register. Austin's laughing.
So, I feel you, man. I feel you. and that's one thing that I want to pull out just from what you just said there is it's a natural, in my opinion, a natural male reaction, attitude, behavior. I think we get in trouble a lot of times for not listening and for, not paying attention, for not talking, yada, yada. And those are all true statements. Sometimes that is on us
especially
because we just are.
Part.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that's on us because we're just oblivious to our own, own fault. Other times, though, and Laura and I have had this conversation, our brains are one-track brains, and we sometimes cannot get outside of that track and process anything else. That's not, our fault. That's not a blame on us. That is a literal psychological reality that we have to be in the right moment to process, to understand, to communicate. And if we aren't, you're not going to get a single word out of us on the matter. So I wanted to put that out there for the women listening. It's okay if your guy doesn't hear you or doesn't understand sometimes, because that's just how God made his brain to work. He doesn't always have that, open ear, hear everything that happens. We're zeroed in, we're focused. So sometimes we need to be more aware, but other times that's just how the situation is. So I wanted to kind of bring that out because that is a true behavior mechanism of man that can be frustrating, can be aggravating, but is also very real at times. Hey folks, hope that you thoroughly enjoyed going back to that episode and listening once again. And as we get this new year started, it's the perfect time to take control of your money, to overcome the fear and frustration that you experience with financial management, and to achieve the goals that you've only been dreaming about. And to help you get started on that process, I encourage you and invite you to come check out some of the free resources that I have at freedommoneycoach.com. You can access my guide on the 6 secrets to healthy money conversations with your spouse. I also have a free budget training video that will outline exactly how you can get started budgeting quickly and easily with your spouse to make it effective this year. And if you really want to get started on the right foot and take fast action and get momentum built up on your journey to obtaining complete control of your money, then I invite you to book a free discovery call with me. We can walk through your goals, your struggles and challenges, and determine what the next step is for you and if coaching would be a good fit for you to achieve those goals and those outcomes. You can access all of that at freedommoneycoach.com. And we'll see you again next week on The Heart of Money.